Welcome to the ISB webinar, Student Learning. Do boards really make a difference? I'm going to give you a hint. Yes, they do. And we're going to be learning more about how boards make a significant difference related to student learning in our discussion today. This webinar is designed to provide candidates running for the school board key insights on the importance of whole board learning team to keep the focus on student learning, and then to talk and unpack what does that work look like at the board table. This is also a great refresher for some of our members, and we see some of you today, so thank you for joining us as well. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the school board elections webpage on our IASB website. Hi, my name is Lou Gavist, and I'm on the board development team here at IASB, and I will be one of your facilitators. But I am so grateful to be joined by two of our practicing current school board members who have agreed to take some time out of their busy schedules and be with us today to contribute insights and experience on some of the topics that we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So Kathy, let's start with you.
I'm Kathy Roethler. I'm from Emmitsburg, Iowa, and I am president of the Emmitsburg Community School Board.
And Kathy, how long have you been on the board?
12 years, 11 years, but not consecutively. So
on and off. Okay, thank you.
Right.
And Michael, would you please tell us about yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Tretton. I'm a board member for Waukee Schools. I've actually only been on the board for about 10 months. I'm filling out the term of another member who was appointed or elected to the Iowa House. So I was appointed by the current board and actually didn't have to go through the election process. So this coming fall will be my first go through that.
So for those of you joining us live or watching the recording, you can tell that we have a nice diversity with our facilitators today. Kathy represents a smaller district in North Iowa with years of experience, and Michael, you're from a larger district and were recently appointed, and both of you are going to have significant things you can share with different perspectives. So thanks again for agreeing to say yes when I reached out to you and asked this favor. Emily, would you just take a moment and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Emily Rhodes, and I provide support for Lou and the rest of the board development team, and I will be also supporting this webinar, so if you have any issues, feel free to send me a message.
Thank you, Emily. And Emily be also dropping some things in chat, so be watching for that. Thank you, Emily. So engagement. We really at IASB try to strive to make these learning experiences as meaningful and powerful as possible. So every now and then we're going to ask you to unmute yourself and ask questions. That's why we did it in this format. So until then, we ask everybody to go ahead and mute your microphone so that we can not have any maybe barking dogs or dishes going in the background. So be watching for those question slides because we really do want to entertain your questions. In the meantime, we're happy to also have you drop your questions right in chat. Emily and we, the facilitators, will be watching for that, and then we'll address your questions as they arise. So thank you so much for being here today. Emily, I think we're going to start it off with a poll, and let's see, for fun, just to get us all aware, who's participating today.
So I've launched that poll, so go ahead and make your selections.
Thanks, Emily. So if you're watching this as a recording, you will not see the poll. We will talk about the results afterwards, or if you can't see it, it may be because you have a pop-up blocker. But we'll again be sharing and talking through the results.
Thanks, Lou. All right, we've got almost everyone responded, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share out those results.
Can't wait to see. Thanks, Emily. Okay, so are those the results now, Emily, being shown?
Yep, looks like we've got almost half and half candidates and half current board members, so nice mix.
Okay, and I want to stop and say, candidates, this is a model that board learning never ends. And so you have half of our audience today and our board members who are already practicing, which goes to show there's always room for learning. So thank you so much to all of you, all of y'all, as our kids in Texas would say, your commitment to learning. Thank you, Emily. So let's talk about and set the stage. What are we going to be talking about today? We have three big goals. And the first is to discuss how board service is about serving all the students in your district, not just some students, but all, and why that's important. And then we'll explore a little bit what the research and our experience with boards over the years tells us on how board teams can and do make a difference in student learning. What do those behaviors and actions and beliefs look like? And then we'll talk about the challenges that boards face in keeping the focus on student learning amid all the other important things that boards deal with and some of the distractions that come at the board table, and how boards can overcome that and keep the focus on student learning. So those are the three big goals for today. So let's dive right into the first goal, and that is to discuss the big picture of board service, and that's to ensure that all students learn at high levels. Let's just start this off by saying one of the things that we like to say in workshops when we come to boards and work at the board table, that as board members, you are responsible for two of the community's most precious resources. And I asked this question, I said, what are they? And a common response is kids and money. Absolutely. You're responsible for ensuring all kids learn well and also having fiscal responsibility with your public funds. Today, and while school finance is definitely important, today we're going to focus on ensuring that all students receive a quality education and what that looks like, what it takes from boards to do that well. As a refresher, if you watched one of our earlier webinars, we talked about and said, so this is a refresher, that authority is granted to the board as a whole. As individual candidates, new board members do not have authority. That comes as a collective body. And board members work together in partnership with their superintendent learning together as a team so that the board can make the best decisions possible on the behalf of students. So big picture, your authority is granted as a team, not as individuals. And when we talk about all students, what do we really mean by that? Well, plain and simple, all means all. And that means regardless of who elected you, whether you were elected by a smaller constituency because you were serving in a director district, or maybe your district has different towns. Once you're elected to the board, you're serving all students. And that's really an important concept to understand. And this can be problematic and a challenge, particularly what we find is because the public often does not understand the governance role of the board. And so it's important to understand that all means all. One of the most favorite quotes that we have at IASB is a quote that came from one of your peers a couple of years ago from an Iowa school board member. And he said this, of course, parents want the best for their own children. That's their job. As a school board member, it's my job to want the best for each and every child. We love that so much that we've captured that and use it as a beautiful reminder of when you run for the board and serve, that you are serving all students. So now I'm going to turn it over to our contributors and ask them to share some insights related to these two questions. And again, this is designed for candidates. Michael and Kathy, if you were a potential new board member, what's important to keep in mind related to this question, serving all students? And also along with that, what can help you grow in your understanding and viewpoints? So to start us off, Kathy, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and let's start with you.
Okay. It's best to know that the reason you're running for a board to be a board member is that your agenda should be the education of every child. It's tough when you have agendas because you are a member of a board, and that's where your quote power comes in. You cannot make decisions on your own. You have to do it as a member of a board. I think it's very important when you first become a board member to sit back and listen, because you can learn so much from listening, and you'll get the ideas of what's going on as a board member, and it will show you what path to go down as you proceed further into your board membership.
Thank you, Kathy. Michael, what would you like to share?
Yeah, I agree with what Kathy said there about, just getting new perspectives. One of the things that comes to mind, kind of early in my term, we had a pretty controversial kind of topic come up. And we heard from a lot of parents, and, they came and spoke at board meetings, and in a lot of situations, they were saying things like, imagine if this was your child, how would you react? And, one, I think that's important to understand their perspectives. But secondly, I thought, it does create challenges. I do have kids in my district. And so, I think it would be really challenging for me to sit, make a decision and say, hey, this is what's best for my kids. So this is how I'm going to decide on this particular topic. That would be really challenging to be able to sit in front of people and share that sort of perspective. So I think those were, good examples of really trying to think about what is best for for all students and keep that top of mind.
Those are really helpful comments from you both. And it's interesting because as a member of the public, somebody wanting to serve, we only have our lived experience. Like you said, Michael, your own children, or Kathy, I know you have grandchildren. You're very familiar with their needs. And you may have, neighbors. We have our own lived experience, and that's beautiful and valuable. But there's so much more that board members learn over time. And I appreciate both of your comments that it's okay to be patient, sit back, learn, because there's so much more that the whole board knows that the candidates don't know. So it's okay to learn over time. That's really helpful. Thank you. I think there's a related question. So as we're thinking about it's important to serve all students, how can boards keep the focus on serving all students? And that's an important question. Let's dive into that. And I think, Michael, you're going to start us off on that one.
Yeah, I think we've got a couple good examples of this. So a few things that come to mind. First of all, on every board agenda, we meet every 2 weeks, or twice a month, I should say. Every board agenda, there's an agenda item called Celebrating Success. So there's every board meeting, there's at least a couple minutes of the superintendent talking about all of the great things that are happening within our district. So teams traveling or winning competitions, honors from students or academics, just the whole gamut of things there. So I think that's one way that we keep it top of mind. Another thing that we do as schools starts to get in session here, we'll start a series of school visits, so which is all coordinated through our board secretary. But I think that's also a great opportunity. On a monthly basis, we actually go out to the schools and talk to the principal and the leadership teams at these schools, and it really gives us good insights about how things, the boots on the ground, how things are going from their perspective, where we can help, issues, those sorts of things. And then similar to that, we also have some of those schools come in on a monthly basis and present at the board meetings as well. So those are a lot of different touch points, but it's trying to keep that focus on the kids and make sure that we know all the things that are going on within the district.
And really keeping the focus on all the students. You have quite a large district. And so large district, how you keep the focus on all kids. Thank you, Michael. Those were beautiful strategies. Kathy, in Emmitsburg, what are some of the strategies that you all do, or from your own experience, what helps you keep the focus on serving not just the kids that you know and love personally, but all students of your district?
Well, we do two things at our board meetings. We have a teaching and learning segment where teachers will come in and tell us certain things about what's happening in their classrooms. Like we had a reading curriculum change, so the teachers explained to us what that all entailed. And we also have a student board member. We find that the students are very perceptive. They have a whole different view on topics. And we felt it was time to get their ideas of what's going on in the school. They should have a voice, and we've learned a lot just by having them on our board.
So for those of you that you may or may not know, some boards in Iowa actually have student representatives that sit with the board and serve the board and can be a real voice for students at the board table. Not all districts choose to do that, but those that do see real benefits. So that's an example, Kathy. Thank you. And Michael, I really appreciate the strategy that you said in Waukee. You have coordinated school visits, and I know that can be a really powerful way for you to see in action some of the really important things that are happening. And as you said, that's an important, if the board team and administration choose to do that, that's well coordinated with the superintendent through the board secretary, so that we're not just coming in and interrupting instruction, for example. And also another key point in that is that a mantra at IASB that we say is information for one is information for all. So as you're coordinating those visits, it's not just Lou as a board member going in and saying, all the board has the opportunity to receive that same information. And so that can really work really well when it's coordinated to that effort. So thanks, Kathy and Michael, for sharing those great ideas and examples of how boards can keep the focus on all students. One more.
And I'll chime in. We're actually adding students to our board as well. We're going to add one from each of our 2 high schools. So yeah, we're jumping on board with that.
Oh, that's wonderful. And as a board team, what was one reason that you chose to do that, Michael? What was the benefit that you're hoping to gain from that?
Yeah, truly just that perspective, like Kathy talked about. It's they're coming at this from a totally different point of view and lens. And so yeah, just having an opportunity to get those insights and think about that and use that as a data point when we're making decisions.
It can be a great leadership opportunity for students too. And speaking of data points, that's another way that board members can learn and keep the focus on all students, is by looking at data together with their administrators on what's the participation rates in different programs. So how many of your students are in free and reduced lunch? How many students are in our English language learners or in your gifted and talented program? Again, that's another way to broaden board members' perspective on understanding the needs of the district of all kids. So thanks again for sharing, Michael and Kathy. Emily, I think we have another quick poll, and this is I want to turn it back to our audience participants. Which areas will be your first focus of learning if you are elected and you're a brand new board member? Which will be your first areas of learning? And you can select more than one. And Emily?
Just still getting responses here. We'll try to get a few more, give it a few more seconds. Lots of important areas being chosen. And of course, we have an all of the above. So that's in there too.
I mean, all of it isn't all important.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and the poll and share those results out now.
Okay. Thanks, Emily.
So we've got teaching and student learning, school finance being some top ones. And like I said earlier, several options were all of the above. So good results here.
Yeah, half the results are like, I just want to learn everything. And it takes time. So give yourself time and lots of patience to learn your way into it. Thanks, Emily. Okay, let's dig into, I think we're going to open it up for questions. Now, if somebody has a question that they want to ask our facilitators, now's the time that you can unmute yourself and ask. And we'll just wait a moment.
I have a question.
Okay, Angela.
Yeah, can the board, Kathy and Michael, can you talk a little bit about your selection process for the student board member? I think that's a really great idea, and I know our district hasn't implemented it yet, so I'd like to hear more about it.
Kathy, do you want to go first? I think, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted. What we do in Emmitsburg is we have the teachers select people that they feel would be good on the board, be willing to do it, not too shy, so they can say what they need to say. And then the board chooses the student that they feel would fit in best.
Thanks, Kathy. Michael.
Yeah, and this is still a little fresh. We're still kind of in the process of this, but our policy committee did created a policy around the student member. I believe that it's the ultimate selection is going to be made by the superintendent, but it's a combination of recommendations from teachers. I think there might even be like an application or an essay, and then also some requirements on attendance, and then just kind of an expectation that they're going to be, kind of interactive, I guess, with their peers. So, after you come to a board meeting, taking that information back, to their peer group and sharing news and getting more feedback to bring back to the board table. So that's kind of how we're approaching it.
Thanks, Michael. Great question, Angela. Every district, every board team needs to spend some time together discussing if we're going to have student representatives, why, what's the big picture outcome. Board operates at a policy level. What do we want to accomplish? What's our purpose? And then talks about what kind of process they would like to see put in place, and then gives the administration the charge to make that happen, putting in some of the outcomes that they would like to see. So that's a great question. Every district approaches it differently. Every board team does. And you've got two great examples there. So thank you for the question. Any other questions? Okay, we'll have another time or two when you can unmute and ask a question. Don't forget, you can also, Siobhan, you can also put your questions in chat. Siobhan, thank you. You can unmute yourself and show yourself if you'd like. She is our policy wonk, as we like to say. Siobhan, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hey guys, I'm Siobhan Schneider. I work over at IASB, and I am possibly the state's biggest policy nerd. So if you have questions about school board policies, I'm the resource for our membership. And I just wanted to add in that IASB actually has a sample policy on student school board representatives that helps to give a little bit of a starting framework for districts that are interested in learning more about it.
And you just put one in chat. I like how you just slid in there. Perfect. Thank you, Siobhan. I mean, just like that we didn't know that question was coming, and you just slid it right in. So, and we'd love to have you join us if you would like, or you can turn your webcam off and just join us when you want to do that too. All right. Thanks, Siobhan. Appreciate you being here. So let's dig into goal number 2. And this is talking about now how the board does positively impact student learning. What does that look like? We're going to just spend a little bit of time very minimally touching on the research. But speaking of research, Emily is going to drop in chat a research brief that talks about what does board work look like for boards who had made a significant difference in student learning, the 8 traits of effective boards. So watch that in chat, and you can download that and read it at your leisure if you're interested in going a little bit deeper. So the name of our title of our webinar, do boards make a difference? And I jokingly said, yes, they do. Seriously, boards do. And we elevate board members here at IASB because we know that you are vital in serving the district and making a difference. But what does that look like? We know from years of our own research at IASB and the research of others, and years of working with boards, that there are specific actions and steps that board members take that really result in improved student learning. So let's take a look at what that looks like. One of the first key roles that the board plays, and sometimes I think board members underestimate this, is charting the course for the district. What is it that you want to have happen? boards think long-term. What are our greatest student learning needs? And what do we want to improve? And so that means having a vision, but also setting goals around what you want to have accomplished. So let's give an example of one of the districts I'm recently working with. They've decided that literacy is a focus that they're going to implement district-wide. Okay, so that's an important board level decision to say to staff, we care about literacy. We want to ensure all students are literate by the time they graduate. So all throughout the system, we're going to put our collective energy toward literacy development. Another piece of that is also saying, having the beliefs that we have more is possible. We can do better. We have a beautiful staff, great staff. We know we can do better, and we know we have the staff to make it happen. So those beliefs and the action that the board takes in setting the vision and the goals and then what you want to accomplish is a critical role that the board plays. Well, along with that, if you set the high expectation, you have to provide the necessary supports or you're setting the system up for failure. So let's go back to our literacy focus. So a district's going to have a district-wide literacy focus. What should the teachers be learning in their professional development time? Research and strategies to implement classroom strategies to improve literacy. Okay, well, what kind of support does that take? Time in the calendar for teachers to learn together, to collaborate, professional development resources, whether that's experts to come and support and coach or new materials. And so that means that you're aligning your budget. So providing supports like aligning your budget to provide the supports for teachers to learn well is important. Board members also provide support in how you interact with your staff. Culture starts at the top. So you have a staff, you say this is what you want to have happen, you provide the support to make it happen, but you also want to have a culture where staff are encouraged to take risks and and innovate. And then together at the board table, you're learning with your key administrators, your superintendent, and your principals on what's working well and providing support along the way, what's needed. One of the most important things that a board can continue to ask is, what do you need from us? And I just alluded to this third role. You set the expectations, you provide the support, then you monitor progress along the way. You heard Kathy and Michael both say that they hear reports at the board table. That's just really important. Whole board learning together at the board table, you're monitoring progress, saying, okay, we said literacy is important. We provide the supports. How is it going? And so periodically throughout the year, board members get information from superintendents, from principals, and even teacher leaders and students to come and share how that's going. So those are three big key roles of the board related to student learning. Let's hear now from Kathy and Michael. What does the board role look like in your district? Now we've shared a couple examples. Let's hear in addition, what does this work look like at your table when you're setting goals, providing support and monitoring, and what else might be important to think about? And I think I'm starting with you, Kathy, this time.
In Emmitsburg, we try to make sure that our teachers and the support staff feel like they are appreciated. I think if they feel appreciated, they do a better job at teaching the students. We want them to know we are behind them. Like I said earlier, we did a reading, we're doing a different reading curriculum and it's going very well. And we were open to that. You know, if your scores are not changing over the years, we find it's time to do something different. And that's what we did with reading curriculum. We backed our teachers and it's working out very well. We also, every once in a while, we'll have a breakfast for teachers or a lunch for teachers to show how much we appreciate them. They are the catalyst behind the learning, and we feel with them, we can do anything. And they give very good ideas, and we try to appreciate that and put those into use.
So Kathy, when your board invested, when you say your teachers are implementing new curriculum, I'm guessing that was an expenditure that the board had to approve. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yes. We have a teaching and learning segment in our board meetings, and they would come explain to us what they were trying to achieve, and then we would vote on whether or not we felt that that was important. And then throughout the year, they come back and tell us how it's working out, which is, it's great to get that kind of feedback.
Okay, so the board voted to support administration's recommendation, staff's recommendation for the expenditure because it was an identified need. And providing the kind of support, those board messages, sharing to your staff how much you appreciate them. Believe me, as a former teacher, that speaks volumes and goes a long way. So thank you for sharing those examples. Michael, talk about Waukee. What does this work look like in Waukee?
Yeah, I would say that we have a pretty important strategic planning process and strategic plan that we implement, or that the superintendent implements. We actually just at our meeting last week had at the end of our meeting had a work session where the superintendent and the leadership team kind of presented their strategic plan for the coming year, and then got kind of our feedback on the areas of focus, and in high level, that strategic plan really focuses on the students. It focuses on connections to the community, and then also the teachers, and then also, as you mentioned, Lou, the financial health. So that's a key component as well to all of this. But then it's also, so it's not only coming up with that strategic plan, but then it's also like monitoring. So we will have report backs kind of throughout the year, 2 or 3 different touch points from the superintendent where he'll kind of take some time to kind of reflect on these strategic priorities and report back on the benchmarks and how things are progressing according to that plan.
Thanks for sharing that, Michael. I had about 8 comments I wanted to make, and I think one that comes to mind is when I talked about earlier, or if I haven't said so, governance is a mystery. It's not intuitive. We don't operate at governance level at home. We're doers. And what's an interesting evolution of understanding that board members go through, and through your strategic planning process, you modeled that the board doesn't get in and attend, doesn't sit with the curriculum director and learn all about the initiatives. Board members don't attend professional development. They don't pick out the professional development providers, but they do set the outcomes. This is what we want to accomplish. And that's what you were just talking about in your strategic plan.
Yep, exactly.
As a new board member, and I'm putting you on the spot,
Yeah.
What was one thing that was a new idea to you in terms of the vision, support, or monitoring that was new to you because you were just recently appointed a few months ago?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we're studying it now. I actually saw over the last several months, I kind of saw the back end of that process, meaning I was hearing the report outs and the feedback of a plan that I didn't really know even existed, or how it came about. So that's kind of the interesting thing about just the timing and the cycle of everything. But honestly, probably the one thing for in our district that I thought was interesting was just there is a focus on the connection to the community. And I think some of this comes back to, we're a high reliability school and trying to implement that. And so with mental health and all of these challenges, that connection to the community is like that's one link in the chain that I didn't necessarily expect to run across as a board member. I assumed it was going to be very focused on our students and our teachers, but just that other link of, the parents and the community also have a really important role to play in all of this. I think is something that I didn't necessarily see going into it.
And as locally elected officials, you are the liaison, right, for the community, and you channel that information to the board, to the superintendent, board president, and then working together. Thank you for sharing that. Kathy, any other insights if you have anything else to share?
Emmitsburg also tries to communicate with the city and also the businesses throughout the community. we want them to feel a part of the school system. And fortunately, we've had, good outcomes from that. We do a lot of things with the city. We have tremendous backing from our businesses. And we find that that's very important as part of the district being involved with those two entities.
Thank you for sharing, especially when you're talking about rallying support around your goals and what you want to accomplish together, that this is really a community effort, school community effort. I think one of the things that's important also for candidates to keep in mind is that when you're elected, if you're elected and you're joining and you take your seat on the board November or December, think about the school year has already started. The train has left the station. So there's goals already set, professional development's already set, kids are learning, teachers are working hard. And so there's a lot of learning that comes with board work throughout as Kathy and Michael, as you both said, then throughout the rest of the year. Next year is when the board and superintendent and key administrators will come back around in the spring or summer and reaffirm what are the goals that we want to accomplish. So coming in mid-year, it's kind of interesting, but you just buckle your seatbelts because there's a lot of learning that happens, but we do appreciate your interest in serving. Okay, so let's pause for a moment. Does anybody have any questions about the topic about how boards can and do make a difference and what that work looks like? Teacher wait time, 3 seconds. Okay, again, if you have any questions, please put them in chat. Let's move on to our third goal now. And we've covered this a little bit, but I think we can go deeper. We talked about how do you keep the focus on all students, ensuring that you're not just focusing on those that elected you from your constituency, but how do you keep the focus on student learning amid all the issues that board members are facing? And one of the things that we recognize that many of our board teams right now are working through some pretty big projects. And whether that's a construction project where they're building new buildings or renovating, or maybe there's some districts that have some finance challenges that they really need to devote some significant time to. We totally understand that, and that's important. What's really important though, is once those projects or issues are taken care of, that the board steps back and intentionally puts the focus back on student learning, because those big projects can take time away from student learning when you need to meet and have big discussions on big issues. So it's just something that we encourage board members and board teams to raise the level of consciousness. Let's get back and have the focus on student learning. It's interesting because what we find board members will say is that, and what we see, that it's not only the big issues that vie for boards times, but sometimes there's some smaller issues that can creep into board meeting time and discussion. And boards teams only have so many minutes per week, per month, per year to meet and learn and make important decisions. And so if a board team starts to weigh in on things like, and these are true examples, the homecoming parade route, or what color we're going to paint the gym, they can do that. But what are they not focusing in on? So it's important to be thinking about what kind of challenges there are, what topics board members need to address, but then also at the same time, really keep the focus on student learning. And that's a constant challenge. And one of the reasons that this is important, besides the fact that you can be pulled away from student learning, board members, when you ask, why are you running for the board? Most will say to make a difference. And this can leave people feeling unsatisfied if they really aren't seeing a focus on student learning and feeling like they're making a difference. Before we go to the scenario, let's go ahead and ask for some insights from Michael and Kathy. Michael, what else would you like to say in terms of strategies or insights on keeping the focus on student learning?
Yeah, honestly, the first thing I would say is in some respects, I would say you need to kind of stay out of the way of this superintendent and the school administrators. as like Lou pointed out, I think we could, and with our role, create a lot of obstacles and hurdles, a lot of distractions for for the school district, for the team, if we start really digging into things that are less consequential than the big picture. And so I think that is an important learning, is to obviously you need to have that oversight, but it's also not getting so granular that you kind of slow everything down. We've had Lou and her team come to a couple of different board training sessions with us, and the analogy that Lou shared with us was, are you on the dance floor, or are you in the balcony? So I think we still that analogy still comes up actually in our meetings, and so that's as a board member, I think our job is to be in the balcony and see what's going on, and not necessarily be on the dance floor and trying to get into the weeds on everything.
Well, Michael, I'm glad that analogy kind of stuck with you. So is that is something that you actually help each other kind of monitor yourselves to make sure that you're staying at that governance level and not really getting into the daily work of the staff?
We do, and I'm not. Yeah, it's not. I don't think we call each other out, but I've probably been in that scenario where I'm kind of asking myself, like, yeah, what's my goal here, my outcome that I'm trying to reach, and yeah, is it the right area of focus? So for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate the fact that you're sharing that it's okay to have those conversations as a board team, that continuous improvement. Kathy, what about at Emmitsburg?
We have certain committees formed after the elections. We have facilities, finance, and policy. And that's the time that those members can delve in a little deeper without bringing the entire board in. And we can talk about what's necessary in each of those areas. We also, during the board meetings, have our superintendent talk to our superintendent, and our administrators give reports on their building. And we find that to be very informational. And the other thing is, I try to meet with our superintendent at least once a week. We go over things that have been happening or what's going to come up in our board agenda. And then it just makes it it makes the flow better.
And one of the things that you and I visited about recently, Kathy, is when you meet with the superintendent as the board president and you're setting the agenda, that's your opportunity together to make sure that the focus is on student learning and tied to your goals. Is that right?
Correct.
And
that's the beauty of the committees. They can delve deeper into those areas without bringing the entire board in and losing track of what our goal actually is.
Tying it right back to student learning. One thing I was going to share, and it's similar, Michael, to what you do in Waukee. Some board teams have a standing student learning agenda item on every meeting, and they put it at the top at the beginning of their meeting, maybe after their consent agenda, after they take some of their business. It's one of the first discussion items. And what kind of think about the message that sends, that we're putting student learning at the top. That is like your celebrations, Michael. I was there and I got to see that. Siobhan and I were there one night, got to see celebration of the teachers coming and sharing the good things. Just a beautiful way to celebrate what's going on, but also to keep the focus on student learning. Thank you so much to you both for sharing. And now we have a fun activity. It's a scenario. Whenever you see scenarios from IASB, they come from our bank of real life experiences. In this scenario, let's consider when Nancy Newcomer, new board member, tries to follow through on her promise to voters after she won her election seat. Okay, setting the stage. And Emily has graciously agreed to read this scenario for us. You should see it on your screen, but Emily's going to read it.
Okay. Board candidate Nancy Newcomer ran for the school board for the primary reason to reopen the beloved historical Truman Elementary, the neighborhood school that the previous board had closed. After all, the Truman students deserve their own school. As PTO president of Truman Elementary, Nancy was successful and won a seat on the school board. True to her word, shortly after the election, Nancy met with the superintendent and board president to pursue ways to get reopening the school on an upcoming board agenda.
Thank you, Emily. Beautiful. So in this scenario, Nancy is passionate about a single issue that matters to her and her constituents. She's very well intentioned. But the public doesn't always understand the role of the board and its charge in serving the best interests of all students. And this can be quite a challenge for the entire school board team. And the reality is you can take out this topic and replace it with something else. Let's say that Lou is very passionate about Latin, and I want to see that added to our English or our language program. Or I have a child that is excelling in lacrosse, and I would like to see that added and expand our sports program. And I'm really passionate about that. These are just an example of some of the examples of how it might be a single topic item that somebody's passionate about, but at the same time, it can create some challenges. And so I'm going to turn it back over to our experts, our school board members. Kathy, what kind of insight or advice would you give candidates to be thinking about in terms of related to a topic where you're so passionate about?
I think the most important thing is don't promise things that in the end you can't give the public. First of all, you're a member of a board. You don't make decisions individually. And that's sometimes hard for people because some board members do run with an agenda in mind. I think, like I said earlier, sitting back and listening for the first several meetings is the most important way to learn what's been happening, what's going on in your district. With agendas, it just doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to because you don't know what it's like to be a member of a board. So I think that's the most important thing I could possibly say.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Kathy. Michael?
Yeah, I talked earlier about kind of staying out of the way a little bit, and I feel like this is an example of really getting in the way. I think that this would be a distraction and really not honoring, the work of the superintendent and the school administrators, because I'm sure that they were definitely part of that decision, even if the board approved it. So I think this is a recipe for just creating, dissension, distraction, within this group and within, the board and administration.
Yeah, even very well-intended people have something they're so passionate about, but to your point, it can create tension because as you said, Kathy, you are part of a bigger picture. You're right, you have no authority as an individual, so be careful making the promise, and that collectively your authority is a board team. That's really important. And you both have said that learning is so important. As candidates, new board members don't have the bigger picture view or have as much information about the district and past board decisions and upcoming projects that the rest of the board has. And that's, again, another reason why it's important to give yourself permission to learn, ask good questions, and learn along the way. By the way, the article that Emily put in chat a little bit ago about the 8 traits of effective boards, one of those traits is learning together at the board table. So again, give yourself permission and time to learn. Thank you for sharing, Michael and Kathy. Your insights are so valuable. I'm just going to wrap it up with the three big topics, and then if there's any other questions, I'm going to ask you to put them in chat or unmute yourself real quickly. But again, the three big ideas for this afternoon is board service is about serving all students. Board teams can and do make a positive difference, especially when they keep the focus on student learning. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Michael and Kathy and ask, what other final insight would you want to share with people who are running for the board, new candidate? Michael, let's start with you.
Yeah, still being relatively new to this myself, I would just stress there is a lot to learn. It's a different environment. There's lots of rules. When you get into finance, there's a lot of legal rules and things that you need to understand about where money comes from and where it can go. A lot of it's also it's a very public forum to do this learning, so it's not like you always get to meet behind closed doors and build those relationships with your other board members, kind of behind the scenes. It's all very public. It's, our meetings are all recorded. They're available on YouTube. So it's, you have to be very intentional about the things that you do and say. I'm 10 months in and there's still kind of new things that are coming up. I haven't seen a full cycle of, setting strategic plan, going through handbooks, just all sorts of things that just come up on an annual basis that you don't get to see until you've been through it for a year, and then things will kind of start to repeat. So definitely there's a lot to learn. And then the other thing I just wanted to throw in, just having a mutual respect for your other board members in the district. It's I think everybody has reasons that they're there and maybe different strengths, and just making sure that you understand, people's motivations and accept those and doing your best to work together and respect their input.
Oh, that's well said. Well said, Michael. Thank you. Kathy, what insights would you like to share? And I can't tell, Kathy, if you're frozen or Kathy?
Because all of a sudden the internet came to a halt.
You're fine.
So I agree with everything Michael said. I've been on the board for 3 terms. And honestly, I learn something every time I meet with the superintendent, our teachers, administrators at board meetings. It is an ongoing learning experience. I would hope that new board members are running, excuse me, for the purpose of our students. That's what we're here for. We want the best education for our students, and try to put agendas aside. I think a unified board is very important. I think you can move ahead much quicker if you have a unified board. And excuse me, try to sit back and listen and learn. And if, when you get on the board, if you need to, go talk to the superintendent about things that are going on that you might not be aware of, so you can get a background that will help you continue, on the board. Excuse me. So I do think all those things are important.
Thank you both. You both said a lot of important things. I heard learning, again, continue to learn and also have that mutual respect, so you can have that cohesive team. You may not have the same opinions, perspectives, and you may sometimes have disagreements, but in the end, finding a common ground and serving in the best interest of students is so important, because there's so much at stake if you don't. Emily, I think you are, if you have any questions in our contacts in our PowerPoint, please send an email to the board development team or give us a call and we'll get them answered. And Emily, talking about learning, I want to honor the fact that all the people either watching this recording or here live today are already showing a commitment to learning, and IASB is a key resource to support board member learning. So Emily, would you share some of the events that we have coming up for candidates and new board members?
Yep. So this is the 3rd webinar in our candidate series. We've got one more about building effective relationships with your legislators. And so I'm going to share here right now, each of our 4 webinars in this series are being recorded. And the recording for this webinar should be up within 24 hours, and you'll get an email reminder that is available. And then we have our annual convention that we have every year, our 78th this year on November 15th and 16th. And so newly elected board members, we have a workshop on that Wednesday, November 15th, that is especially for you, where we cover essential information, and it helps you get a great start to your board service. And then the next day is our convention. That's on Thursday with keynote speakers and more than 30 breakout sessions, education sessions, focus on current issues and trends in Iowa and in your districts, including a new track for new school board members. And so I will also be sharing a link to our website so that if you're interested in learning more about that, you can.
Great, thanks, Emily. Well done. And in addition, we realize that the election happens the week before our conference. That's not by design. It's a long story. But we are doing everything we can to get newly elected board members registered for convention. And so that you can, so please put those dates on your calendar. The district pays for your registration. And if you aren't able to attend the new board member workshop on Wednesday, we do have 16 regional meetings that we will be coming out into the field providing that same content, and that's on our website. Reach out if you have any questions. We can help get you registered for that. I want to tell you, thank you so much for all of you for being here today, and remind you that IASB is an association consistent of board members governed by board members. We're here to help you. We're just a quick phone call away. This webinar was recorded and will be posted on our website soon. And on behalf of IASB, thank you for your interest in serving on a school board. We believe there's nothing more vital that you can do as a civic servant. So thank you for that. Kathy and Michael, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy board and work life to spend some time helping candidates and as a refresher from our existing members. Thank you so much for your insights. Emily, thank you for being the engineer and host for today. And with that, we want to thank everyone again and reach out how we can support you. Take care.